How arouse you from 1 to a 10? Yes, Yoda Toshi here. Today we're going to be going over Black Swan. This is a character that many people were anticipating since the launch of Honkai Star Rail. This was a character you probably saw in some of the old videos thrown onto the Honkai Star Rail channel. And for the most part, we did get a glimpse of the character in the last video that was revealed at the Game Awards. So for many people, you already know who this character is. But if you are rolling for her just for her design, you should probably think about that a little more. We'll talk about exactly why that may be the case. When we look at the Nihility path, for the most part, all the characters currently in the path cover a niche in which you would need a character from this path to cover. So for the most part, we don't need any more Nihility characters for a while. And that's because we already have defense down characters. We already have resistance down characters. We already have characters that enable the dot playstyle, which counts as debuffs, and we have a character that puts slows and other debuffs onto the enemy, and then we have characters that work with the dot enabler character. So for the most part, what else would we need in this path? Let's take a character like Jing for instance. Jing is a character that has been receiving a lot of pseudo buffs in the recent past. You probably have gotten Fu Xuan at some point. Maybe you have gotten Topaz at some point. These are characters that have enhanced the performance of this character overall. So teams over time have changed for Jing, and I expect that to be the same case for Kafka as well. So you're a Seal main, you rolled for Soulwolf at some point. You have rolled for Fu Xuan because Fu Xuan is the best defensive option for this character, and you're going to be saving up for that Quantum Harmony character, who will be drip teased most likely tomorrow. So you're a Kafka main. You've rolled for 4-star DPS characters to work alongside Kafka. Those characters enable Kafka to detonate the dots more on the enemy. You rolled for Huo, who is the best defensive option to use alongside Kafka because of the energy and attack she gives to not only Kafka but the team as well, making her very good for those dot teams. But you have not received or rolled for any 5-star DPS or support character to work alongside Kafka. So, unlike Jing and Seal mains, you're missing a character that would essentially enhance your team's performances overall. So this is a current Kafka team, and you can see, well, you don't have any other characters that is going to enhance the performance of this character overall. And we're talking about 5-star characters, for instance. Now, if you look at all the other teams, Seal's team, you have characters like Silverwolf and Fu Xuan. For Jing's team, you have characters like Topaz and Fu Xuan, who enables Jing to do more damage and mitigate CC. But for the most part, we only have Huo, and we have 4-star characters. So Black Swan is going to be a character that's going to work alongside Kafka, enabling Kafka to do more damage and proc more dots more often. She essentially is going to be a tailor-made support for this character. So the thing is about Black Swan, she can go two ways. A character that has a lot of personal damage to add alongside Kafka while still being a support that works alongside her, or she could be a character that does not have much personal damage but has more supporting capabilities alongside Kafka. But I expect her to be a character that has the latter, essentially being a character that has DPS alongside the supporting capabilities, and Goodnight Sleep Well is going to be a very strong light cone in the character, because if she's applying dots to the enemy alongside Kafka, you're going to make your Black Swan do more damage, adding more to the overall DPS of the team. However, if she is a character that has a lot of debuffs in the form of defense down to throw into the enemy, maybe a light cone like the Resolution Shines with Luca on it would be a very nice option to have on the character, because adding more defense down to the enemy on top of the defense down maybe she already has on her kit is going to allow your Kafka to do more damage with the detonation on the AoE. If you take into consideration that dots do more damage the less the defense of the enemy, you're going to love having more defense down on those enemies. But for the most part, the Path of Nihility has some of the best light cones in the game. You can pretty much just use whatever you have on your account, and I'm sure it would work well on the character. Because again, I'm sure she has dots on her kit, so light cones like Eye of the Prey will still be really good. With Black Swan being a 5-star Wind Nihility character, you're most likely going to replace Sampo in every single team comp you use with Kafka. So keep in mind that Sampo already provides a lot of value for Kafka, so just imagine Black Swan just providing even more value for her and the team. So the reality of the situation is, if the enemy does not have wind weakness, you might find using Black Swan to be a little bit tricky at times, just because she most likely is going to have personal damage alongside the debuff she throws into enemies to support Kafka. So just like you would use the dot characters already with Kafka, you would just match the weaknesses of that enemy. So depending on what the enemy is weak to, you probably will throw other characters into the mix, like Guinai Fen, if the enemy is weak to fire. So whatever you already have been farming for your Kafka, you most likely will just farm for your Black Swan as well. So take all of those extra relics you have for your Kafka and just throw them onto your Black Swan. So she's a character that essentially you can save on farming, save so many resources. Because like the other dot characters, you don't have to over invest into crit stats. So the cool thing about Black Swan is you'll be able to utilize the Glim offset on that character as well, because just like Kafka, you're going to increase the damage of the character overall with the more attack you have. And considering this same set increases the damage of the wearer based on the speed they have, you're going to increase the damage more if you have or meet some of those speed thresholds. And if you use a character like Ruan Mei coming forward into the future, you're going to hit that threshold more reliably and boost the damage of the team overall. With Black Swan being as niche as she is, one of the things I am thinking about is maybe her potentially being a character that can work in other team comps, just like you would use Pela, for instance. That depends on all the things Black Swan does provide in her kit. Maybe she works like Guinai Fen. She has dots on top of the debuff she places on enemy, maybe the vulnerability debuff, increasing the damage those enemies take, or defense down, increasing the damage those enemies take as well. So depending on what this character does is where you could actually end up using her in various team comps. So I will say if you don't have Kafka, she's going to be the most unenticing character in Honkai Star Rail for you, just because she is literally tailor-made for Kafka. I don't think we've had a tailor-made character for a character in Honkai Star Rail yet. I mean, I'm trying to think here, but for the most part, this is a new case of her being, a 5-star version of a pre-existing character to buff a 5-star character for the most part. The closest I can think of is Topaz for Jing, but Topaz is a character that can work in hypercarry teams by herself, and she can work with other fall-up attack characters, not just a character like Jing, right? She can work with, well, I can't say his name, but, other characters coming into the near future and other fall-up attackers going forward. So Black Swan, again, is just a character you're probably not going to roll for if you don't have Kafka, and that's okay. Just understand that if you end up rolling for her based on her appearance, and you don't have this character, you probably will be disappointed. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and that's going to be pretty much it when it comes to Black Swan. She's a very niche character. Most players in this game are not going to be rolling for her because maybe those same players don't have Kafka, which again, Kafka was a character that most players did skip anyways. With that being said, expect characters going forward to be a lot more niche, like Black Swan, for instance. That is after we get characters like Ruan Mei and Hanabi, and those two characters are very unique, but you can only make so many unique characters before you start making characters that overlap with other pre-existing characters. Think of Black Swan and Sampo, for instance. But that's all I'm going to say before I get this channel absolutely, nuked from Hoyoverse, because I do ramble a little too much, and sometimes I just don't know when to stop. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.